that will be led by Alex Gaft regarding cyber fraud. So just a small introduction of Alex. Alex is a fraud and corruption prevention enthusiast. He have long and vast experience in corporate and governance professional, also hybrid experience with compliance and risk and methodologic, with investigation worldwide regarding cyber fraud, with vast of experience. So
I think
Alex...
it's enough, Lior. Thank you.
So without further ado, Alex, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. And I, like many, I want to thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I think that it will be very hard for me to enter many shoes. And my topic is, I think, a little more boring than his. But I think it was his presentation was a perfect introduction to mine, because two of key words that he used, manipulation and critical thinking, they pretty much cover the essence of my presentation as well, and we'll touch on that. So I started my career in, let's say, traditional fraud prevention, where I dealt with procurement fraud and fraud in marketing and CapEx and all other business processes. But recently, for last, I would say, 3 years, my main focus is on cyber fraud. And I think that really it's very important for any information security professional or security professional to be aware of this type of attack, type of fraud, because more and more companies face it. And it may, some of the things I present may sound basic and you're probably aware of them, but if I just succeed in raising your awareness and giving you live examples, I think that I will reach my target for today. So let's move on. Okay. Oh. Yeah. So I mean, it's clear for many analysts and security professionals that cyber fraud is becoming more and more sophisticated. And the risk of it is rising more and more. So it's officially one of the biggest threats for last year and this year and the next year. And the problem is, of course, the sophistication, like I said, that if before, in previous years, the risk was coming from lone individuals or small groups of hackers or fraudsters. Now we have organized crime groups dealing with cyber fraud. We have those groups, they have very high technical skills. Plus, of course, we have a propagation of cyber warfare tools, which are used, of course, not just for cyber fraud, for any kind of cyber attack, but they assist in cyber fraud as well. So cyber warfare tools previously used only by states, but they have leaked, and now any group of hackers can use them, and they pass it from one to another. And still, phishing is the most common way of penetrating an organization and opening a door into it. And that's why we have to keep talking about it and keep training our users in phishing prevention. Ransomware really became one of the most dangerous attacks. And you know probably from recent news that governments are are creating special laws and special task forces to fight ransomware. And I do hope that, you know, on this level, on state level, they will be able to fight it properly, because until now, organizations were basically helpless. So now we have ransomware as a service, when you can basically hire a group of hackers to do ransomware attack for you, or they provide those services to one another. Mobile devices are really, first of all, becoming a tool for many users in organizations, and many business processes move to mobiles via apps. And of course, with it comes the risk of cyber attack, and cyber criminals are developing special customized applications and platforms to attack organizations via mobile devices. Fraudsters are using artificial intelligence and data mining tools like ourselves. It's not just us who use technology for prevention and detection. They use it sometimes even better than us for attacking the organizations. And we have rogue states that use their resources to perform cyber fraud. And I provide a link here to an article about North Korean hackers who you can see how much money they earned in 3 years for their country. So this is really a high risk, and not just something to disregard. Cyber fraud predictions for this year. I mean, it's not a prediction, but we still have half a year to go. So like I said, more and more automation and new technological tools, very high professional level of fraudsters, of our opponents. And that just means that we as security professionals have to really develop our own skills, continual education, plus no choice, we have to cooperate. And I think that this webinar is one of the ways to propagate knowledge and to try to work together in prevention and detection. But I do feel that we're still catching up and running after the criminals. Another thing is, of course, the way fraudsters impersonate others and manage to create fake or synthetic identities, which of course makes it easier for them to perform fraud. And this is something that we have again to address, to find proper tools, proper ways to uncover this impersonation attempts. And social media, and I think many spoke about it, but it's also being weaponized for social engineering. This is also a very important topic for training, for awareness, because maybe we're aware of this process of social engineering, but not many of our users. And social engineering is still the easiest way to attack your organization and to penetrate it. And we'll talk about it a bit later. So phishing, of course, I don't have to explain to you what it is about. You're all aware, but I mean, it's crazy for me, but it still works. And they find a new way to make people click on the link or open a file or run a file, or just provide credentials when they're forwarded to some fake site. So it's still working, although like everyone should be aware of it. So we should keep training people, and we should keep developing the tools that we use. So prevention measures, easiest one, awareness sessions, performing drills. We have already automated training platforms, and I gave example of the one that we use, CyberReady, but you have others, of course. We have dedicated discovery tools that can be added as an additional layer to protection that exists with our email providers like 365, Microsoft, or Google email. And another tool that we use and comes highly recommended, Iron Scales, but of course, again, you have other providers. And we better use threat intelligence services, especially for domain impersonation, because then we can be aware of the preparation of a phishing attack against us or against third parties that work with us. How can we try to recognize a phishing email? And again, I'm sure you're aware of ways, but just look at the example of, for example, of domain name impersonation of the domain of the company I'm currently working for. So only one letter in the beginning is added, and it's a real domain that was created, and we had to take it down. But it's very hard to distinguish, even for our own users, but of course for third parties that work with ICL, for example, for suppliers or clients, so they can be easily fooled. The previous ways of recognition, of course, work less and less. For example, bad spelling. I mean, right now they look very professional, phishing emails, or even trying to analyze the address it's coming from. It's really becoming more and more sophisticated. Again, we have to explain to users that we have different types of phishing, and I detail them below, and that we have more and more of spear phishing attacks, targeted attacks like APT attacks in general, phishing attacks that involve social engineering that are really focus on specific individuals. When fraudsters and hackers, they really learn this person, and they manage to fit the phishing email exactly to this person. So of course the chances of him or her opening it are much higher. Or wailing when they go after top managers of our company. And because our top managers are so busy, they pay less attention to details, and they can be sometimes easier targets, for example, than middle-level managers or just simple employees who have maybe more time to analyze or are not on the run all the time. So coming back to social engineering, what I would like to emphasize, that really it involves a lot of preparation. The attackers, they study your social sites activity and profiles. They study your organization. They study not just you, but other decision makers. They try to understand who is an influencer, who has what position, who can give instructions, who is responsible for what. And they really gather it, of course, from open source, but it may also involve some kind of maybe spying, or maybe even following you if it's a really organized crime organization that is targeting you, or even targeting people close to you, your friends, your family. So really an intelligence operation before they approach you and try to social engineer you. So this is important even for ourselves, because we as security professionals, as protectors, we can be a target as well. So sometimes even we can be a victim of it and not understand that we're being targeted. But even more important, of course, is to explain this to our employees to our users, for example, and in HR department or in the finance department, because they are mostly targeted. So again, prevention awareness is the best way, because I can't really see any kind of software tool that will be able to prevent social engineering, at least in the near future. Let's now talk about specific schemes. So BEC, impersonation fraud, or fake CO fraud. Here we talk about an employee in the company, usually in finance, receiving an email or a phone call from allegedly a CEO or another top manager. And this email usually comes from a private email box. And of course, if a company allows use of private email boxes, it's a problem. But I mean, top managers are usually allowed to do more than regular users. They have privileges. So even if by policy use of private emails is not allowed, sometimes they are an exception. So it can look like it's okay to receive an instruction from a private email box. And then, of course, there is a request for urgent money transfer. There is some kind of explanation or a reason, business trip, I lost my wallet, or there is a secret M&A deal and I need an urgent money transfer to finalize it, or I don't know, a lot of good reasons. And of course, because it's a top manager, in many cases, employees tend to comply, and without asking too much questions, without any verification, especially if it's a couple of thousands of dollars or euros, they just make this money transfer. And of course, it's an impersonation. So although it's a pretty old scheme, sometimes it's still used. And we will see later on that this scheme has more sophisticated methods, but it still works. So what can we do to prevent it? Again, awareness. We can update our business travel procedure. We can make a specific training session on social engineering, but a more sophisticated way to prevent is a callback procedure, when nothing is done, no money is transferred ever without some kind of callback procedure to the person asking for it, or to an entity, a supplier, a client that asks for it, again in an email or in a phone call. But of course, to do a callback procedure based on contact information that you have in your databases, and not based on contact provided by the person who contacts you. Segregation of duties, when one person can't really cause a lot of damage. If it's something above, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000, then they need approval, and then maybe a manager will ask more questions. Ban on use of private emails and business communications, always good. Mobile security for company phones, because maybe a legitimate work phone of a top person can be penetrated and then mails issued from it. And of course, forensic scans of top management equipment. Okay, running forward. Another impersonation fraud, when you receive a fake invoice from your vendor and supplier, and they change in it bank details for money transfer. So it may be accompanied by a phone call. But again, it will come either from a fraudulent domain that impersonates domain of your vendor or supplier, or their email server can be breached, and then you receive a pretty legitimate email just with a request to send money next time to another bank account. So here again, callback and protection of your vendor supplier database and account numbers, and a request that always, when third party asks you to change a bank account, you perform verification, or you need another approval from someone. Never comply with it straight away and just transfer the money. Fake email from your company to your customers. So the example I gave you of a fraudulent domain of our company, then of course it's used to send emails to suppliers, to customers we work with. And again, they send a fake invoice and they ask to transfer money to a fraudulent bank account. So we don't receive anything, but the customer thinks that he paid for our services or for our products. And then probably they will have to pay again because they were fooled. But we also have some kind of responsibility to monitor that those domains, to see and try to help our customers not to be defrauded. So here it's something that it's not our direct responsibility, but of course it can be nice for our customers that if we help them in that. Here it's something maybe with less damages, but someone may try to impersonate our employee. Usually it happens in regard to payroll or some kind of bonus or a gift. And then they contact HR or payroll department and ask for, again, for money or for gift card to be sent, not to regular bank account of an employee, but to their own bank account. And the prevention measures are basically the same for all of them. And of course, you will have the presentation, so you will be able to review it in detail. I'm just conscious of the time. Here we are moving already to a very, very sophisticated fraudulent schemes where, for example, here, and it happened in reality, here fraudsters used artificial intelligence to impersonate a voice of our CEO, and they contacted another top manager and managed to convince him to transfer 220,000 euros. Can you imagine? Yeah, but they really impersonated the voice of the CEO, and the other guy believed it. So I don't even know if we currently have tools that can prevent such scheme. Another a new attack vector is using messaging apps, and you can see that, like I said, more and more employees are using smartphones for their work. We have, of course, bring your own device policies, and some companies allow it. So we have a lot of new risks that we have to address. We can use, of course, MDM, mobile security tools, but in some cases we have to block usage of some of the apps or some of the devices because we're just not able to cover all the risks and to prevent all of the attack vectors. Thank you. I mean, maybe I have a couple of minutes. Maybe I can mention another very sophisticated scheme that I somehow forgot to add to my presentation. And there, fraudsters, they managed to impersonate defense minister of France using masks, and they put on a mask with the face of the French security minister, minister of defense, and they contacted CEOs of very large French companies, and they asked them to help Ministry of Defense of France and to give them money for some secret intelligence operations. And they like really imitated an office of the minister with the portrait of the president and a flag, national flag, and they had this mask on, and they managed to fool many of them and to get a lot of money. and actually they were later caught in Israel. They were French Jews who ran away from police to Israel, and they were arrested, and they are now facing trial in France. So you can see that the sophistication and the tools fraudsters are using are just going up. And of course, we have to keep up. So I do hope that this was interesting. And please, you're welcome to keep in touch via LinkedIn to connect. And I'm sure that we'll have more webinars or just communications there. Again, thank you, Lior. Thank you, Manny. And I pass the baton to Yuli.
Okay, just before that, guys, if you have any questions to Alex, please write them down in the chat of the meeting. We can answer your question if you have any. I do want to say that it's very interesting when combining all the cyber fraud incidents and scenario that Alex presented with the data privacy and all the data that is being collected on us. So keep in mind that the first, that we are providing all those companies our data, our secret data. They have their own AIs and data intelligence and data mining. So they know about us more than we know, or more than we think that they know. And if you are combining all this cyber fraud that might be happen to each and every company, but think of a cyber fraud attack that could be happen on Facebook or Twitter or any other company that collects the data and actually keeping our data in their database. So you can see that there might be a very cyber breach or a big cyber breach on actually and exposing our data in this kind of act. So you understand
exactly.
the measure of it.
That's why I said that Manny's presentation was really an excellent intro, because again, manipulation, the data we provide that is later used for social engineering, and of course critical thinking as some kind of prevention measure that may help us to stop them.